these lectures, I don't know what they're meant to do, simply because a lot of things are already present in the brains of a lot of you who are globally situated. If you ever stop to think, you probably haven't, why it is that you gravitate to liking certain types of music when you are a certain age. You will like what you like. The heart wants what the heart wants. The brain wants what it wants. And the audibles that go into your ears want what it needs to hear in order to satisfy the heart and the brain all at the same time. So you flock to liking what you like. Influences in your life dictate what you like. What likes you, that you like, that's going on visually. Good-looking people oftentimes don't know that they're good-looking. Isn't that a profound analogy? Talented people don't know that they're talented oftentimes. Other people have to tell them that they are, and even in the face of critical acclaim, they oftentimes don't believe that they are. There are people who are talented simply because people tell them they're talented, but there's a little bit of doubt, and in fact that doubt is legitimate because they're not really talented. They just know how to. For instance, that's a horse race. You've got the first place horse, the second place horse, the third place horse. First place horse gets 100% of the purse. The second place horse gets half of the purse. The third place horse gets a third of the purse. So if it's, let's say $100,000. Now this kind of is like, my math isn't 100%, but the second place horse will get $50,000. First place horse is $100,000. The third place horse will get something like 95? No, 35. $32,500. Now you wonder, how does that work? Well, it works because the first place horse, if you listen to a good horse race, will come in and win by a nose. Not a head, a nose, a fraction of a nose. And the reason he's coming and win by a fraction of the nose is because he was only a fraction of a nose better, but he gets $100,000. The second place horse didn't get that fraction of the nose in there, so he gets $50,000. So when you are accounting for talent, there is a biological accounting for why it is that you like one piece of music played by this person over here as opposed to this person over here. It's because he's a fraction better biologically than this guy. Now I'm saying biologically because up here, he perceives time and space a little bit differently than this gentleman over here. He hears possibly maybe less or maybe better, but in how his cerebral capabilities are in an interpretation, whatever it is that he's playing seems to resonate a little bit better than all of you people out there. And so the perception is, contestant A wins the blue ribbon. my point being is gifts, they call it. Yeah, well, when you're in the room, I would suppose the gifts fairy goes around and with the wand and says, bingo, I'm going to make you. Outside influences, gifted musician. Ta-da! 9 months later, even his cry is music to the ears of the obstetrician and the midwife. And so, in the next couple of years, he demonstrates the abilities of a gifted child. Walks, talks rather quickly. He assimilates into his environment, and he's able to pick things up rather easily. Yeah. Picks things up rather easily. Not to say it's going to be a Chopin or a Beethoven, but when they were, who knew? Did their parents know? Were they financially endowed that they could spend their time doing what they did? Or did they do what they did out of necessity? Because the environment they had only had these materials for them to be exposed to this. So they decided, not decided, it was decided for them. The auspices is a gift of the abilities that are just minute enough for auditory of other people to pick it up. Now you have to think, is the auditory of everybody equally the same? Because we're all different, minutely. But yet the perception of listening to this one person seems to affect a vast amount of people a little bit differently. Not all differently to the aspect of liking this person. Beauty. We all gravitate towards liking a certain person over another person. So there's got to be some type of internal compass likable compass. Acceptance of this over that. And they say, well, the majority of the people can't all be wrong. So there must be an ideal that we gravitate towards. Gift. And when you have that, I don't want to use a word like the fiche de resistance, je ne sais quoi, you know, the it. Do you know you have it? Or the mass of people know that you have it. You ever see a real beautiful person and everybody's gravitating towards that person? Oftentimes that person has an attitude or the personality. Hold on just a second. What is it you want from me? What is it you need that I have? I've got it. No. It's a gift. One man's gift is another man's curse. Gifts is oftentimes perceived as a curse. Knowledge. The quest for knowledge. To quantify why it is you know what you know. Put that into a bottle and you will make $1 billion. And unless you have it, make $1 billion. So, in order to quantify what I know, you do a lot of research and thank somebody for the internet because it's a wealth of knowledge. And then you find out that when you were so high and you used to run to the corner because a RV used to pull up and put out its front stairs and you would run up inside. And inside there was a bunch of books, a wealth of books. And in these books carried knowledge, quantified knowledge, legitimate knowledge. That's not to be questioned because it was scanned by people, adults, who were gifted with the ability to read these books and decide this is information people should know. So they put it on the shelf in what they call a bookmobile, and every week they would come and you would bring back the book you brought, you borrowed the week before prior, and you could exchange those books. And you got older and you grew, and you lost sight of it because you had no mentoring to nurture the gifts you were given. So for many of you, those gifts get squandered. They just weren't taken advantage of. And then you got older and you thought, oh, I could have been this. Well, somebody failed you. You didn't fail yourself. Someone didn't have the foresight, the intuition to nurture that gift. It is a gift. Many people think that they could just go into a store and buy it, know that they're buying you. And there are a lot of people that are making a great living off of something that's not a gift. And then you've got people who are getting a lot of enjoyment out of a gift. The world's not fair, is it? Except for greed. Somebody who isn't gifted, but it's just the second place horse or the third place horse. Just enough that if you get the right exposure, they can beat the first place horse out. Well, you're still not going to be as good as the first place horse. Because the minute we start comparing oranges and apples, people begin to realize, well, they prefer apples over oranges. As long as they're not a granny apple, those green ones. Or maybe a Macintosh. And thus lies the conundrum. How do you know you're gifted? Well, first of all, you've got a lot of things going on up here. Because you gravitate to liking what's up here and going in here. And so, when you're playing your instrument, oftentimes you're being led by what's here, wanting to control what's going in here. But unless you record it, you don't really know it. So how did they do this? And they didn't have things like recorders. They had people that let me hear it. It's well, that sounds good. It makes sense, right? And so this system appeared and represented the things that weren't really representable. So they could take a sound and correlate it with something physical. Like this piece, you can see it. A little black dot on a paper, some lines, and they say, well, this note is an A. Why can't that be a C note? Well, it can be a C if we say it's a C. I could say that that's a C, but it's not. Because I know how I tune the instrument, and that is not a C. But I'm playing it as a C. It's because it's being transposed. Things like that in nature. So you can take 7 notes, and you could give those notes sharp names and flat names. So now you have 21. Well, then you say, well, I'm going to make, and this is not really relevant at this time, but it has a relevance someplace in this conversation. And so we say those notes don't have sharps and they don't have flats. And we're going to call that a key. Why is it a key? Because it's an encryption. And it holds the relevant information and the foundation of a lot of things. And applying that key to certain things allows you to figure things out. So we say that key of C has no sharps, has no flats. And so, yeah. However, in that key of C, if we say C, E, E, F, the distance between E and F G, A, B, and C has no space in between the notes E and F, B and C. That's very important. So that key now, what we call tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. I believe that's how the formula goes. But that's not the point I'm trying to make here, is that there isn't spaces, equal spaces, throughout the entire 7 notes. In 2 spots, you have a half a space. Voila. Mediocrity, imbalance in the entire scheme of things. Now, that imbalance in the scheme of things allows you to do outrageous amount, phenomenal things. But if someone were just to be banging on a rock and these tones of these rocks, you would just hear it. There's nothing to associate it with. But the minute you start putting it on a piece of paper, and you can see the association between the actual tones that you're hearing and the way it's situated visually, a light bulb moment. Each one of those notes, you see that C. Each one of those 21 notes, from adding the sharps and the flats, each one of those 21 notes now all of a sudden become scales of their own. And we say, well, you take the C scale and B, A, G, F, and E, and you make scales out of all of those using the same pattern. Tone, semitone, tone, semitone, and you apply that template starting on each one of those notes. Oh, voila, you've got a whole bunch of different scales because the tones all fall in a different spot, giving the audible appearance of a different sound quality. And so now you can correlate those different sound qualities into things that seem invisible, that you can only participate by audibly listening to it. Now you have a template of, oh, that's this scale or that scale, something that will represent what it is that's non-represented by something physical. So with this schema, we now can give those that are not gifted a gift. But that's not to say biologically they're going to be able to accomplish what this gentleman over here is playing. Even though they have a template or a blueprint of what to follow and do while they're doing it, the biologics behind the interpretation of the brain hearing and doing. You see, you've got to send signals to your digits in order for them to perform in a certain way. So the hair that the first place horse got from winning that race is still present within the biologics of this individual. So he's always going to be gifted, whether you like it or not. No one said life was fair. But then you have Johnny Peabody over here, who's deciding, well, I don't really like you. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the second place horse. And the second place horse is going to do what I tell him to do. And I'm going to put the second place horse and tell everybody he's the first place horse. And they're going to give me money to listen to the second place horse until somebody comes along with the first place horse. And that's how this little game seems to be working. Unless you hear the first place horse, you're only going to perceive the second place horse as being a first place horse, but it's actually really, what do they call it? I'm sure that there's a name someplace. Retarded, as this may seem. If they put a third place horse in front of you and you don't have a comparison with the first place horse, you can bet your bottom dollar you're going to believe that third place horse is a first place horse because you've got somebody telling you that third place horse is a first place horse. And you go around accepting mediocrity. And that's how the industry has been structured. And unless you're willing to bend over backwards for the guy who's controlling the industry, your gift will never be seen or heard again. Le voila. Life isn't fair. So you can still be a third place horse and still make $1 million. Everything you know, right and play belongs to the promoters. They say you're a first place horse, but no one ever knows of your gift. Third place horse runs and plays. Everything he writes belongs to the promoters, they say. And so he realizes years have gone by, and when he talks to his manager, the manager says, "This is your share." And he says, "My share? And this is my share. By the way, I own all of this material, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this fourth place horse and have him play this material, and I'm going to give him less than I've been giving you. And we're going to see how that passes off in the masses, because my fourth place horse now is the first place horse." Well, I don't really like how this story is going. Where is this going to end? Because the point I was trying to make was completely, totally different than what came out. It's like when you pick up your instrument in the morning and you start playing. Oftentimes you don't know what the end result is going to be, but picking it up is a first step in order to create something that's possibly worth recording and playing back and listening and giving you enjoyment. You've got to pick up that instrument. Play it.